AI. Welcome to the panel discussion on using big data and AI to understand viewers. We would like to begin by thanking you all for being a part of the fifth edition of Pixels, digital entertainment reaching a new peak. We would like to thank our partners, title partner Wood, platinum partner Amazon Prime Video, CX partner Zendesk, content delivery partner Limelight Networks, gold partner Lionsgate Play and Shimaru Entertainment. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to a distinguished set of leaders. We have Vani Garg, founder ConSoul, who will be moderating today's session. Adolf Proidl, co-founder and CEO CrossroadMedia. Dr. Rubi Boim, CEO and founder Talamoos. Himanshu Sharma, co-founder Devnagri, and Dr. Prashant Pansare, founder and CEO Inteliment Group Rubiscape. I would request all the delegates to kindly post their questions on chat box and Q&A. Our panelists will answer them at the end of the session. Over to you, Vani. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you so much. Uh, very, very, very excited to be part of this amazing panel. And all of you being industry veterans, I'm looking forward to enriching and very learnful session. We're talking about everything exciting today, which is about data, which is about AI, and my favorite topic, which is about customers and how these three are going to come together and what they are doing here. A lot of noise around OTT, especially in the last 2 years. And, you know what, 40 plus maybe OTTs in the country and growing every day, the new ones coming in. And, you know, 25% of India's population is on OTT now. And that is the kind of excitement which is getting built in India and across the globe as much. And especially pandemic has accelerated this growth completely. So I think, you know, and we have been talking about, you know, data and AI and all of this. I want to pass this question, and it is for all of you, and maybe we can start with Dr. Prashant, you, to tell us that, you know, how important is in today's transformation AI's use and data's use, especially for the OTT sector.
Oh, yes, absolutely. First of all, thanks for inviting me to be part of this August gathering. Though virtual, we certainly would have looked forward to meet in person. I also would like to, thank all the members on the panel, quite distinguished guests from the cross borders as well. Uh, Today, what is happening is digital transformation is happening everywhere. And last, almost 18 months, what we've seen is the historic pandemic followed by the global lockdown and the slowdown, economic slowdown. This lockdown has actually sprung digital transformation uh, much more faster than what we would have otherwise anticipated, right? The spirit of humanity cannot stop even if the world is being stopped. And if you look at the healthcare industry, food, agriculture industry, as we always say famously in a Bollywood language in India, roti kapda makan, these are basic essential commodity. Now we are adding some more things to it, right? So digital, as we say, data is a new oil and connectivity is an oxygen. So these are becoming life essentials. And what is happening is that if you are a pharma company or you're a high tech company, your plants needs to keep working. So IoT, Industry 4.0, all of these are actually becoming reality of the day. So how you can have the modern plants, smart city and smart factories which are digitized. And what is important to understand is that when we talk about digital transformations, data democratization is at the core. And how you're being able to really unpackage the value of data, or if how you're being able to leverage on the net data worth is actually becoming the key differentiating aspect. And OTT has become probably the game changer now. If I have to speak about, say, for example, education industry in India, has actually progressed at least 10 years fast forward compared to where it would have otherwise grown, because that industry was never ready. But in less than 3 months, we saw right from the primary, secondary schools, the higher education, as well as private tutors getting on the Zoom calls and using mobile internet and all of that. suddenly completely changing the way they connect, right? And how the business continues as usual. So what has happened is, just imagine, probably the scenario which you would have otherwise think, a scene in a Bollywood movie where we're doing certain things virtually, digitally, right? So today, if you want to celebrate your birthday of your loved one, a family, you want to take them out for a dinner and for a good movie, and then do some shopping and enjoy the celebration, right? Now, how are you doing this in the digital virtual world during the lockdown? So you simply go on
Absolutely.
Swiggy or Zomato, you order your favorite food, you go to
Yes.
cakes and flowers and order the cake, and then you are going on a Netflix and watching a favorite movie on each individual screens, even if you're sitting in the same room or different rooms, and then you are gifting your loved ones the vouchers, or probably the gift using maybe Amazon or a Flipkart. Now that's OTT for you, right? The spirit of humanity is not going to be stopped even if you are locked down in your own homes. And thanks to technology, which has given, not only an option, but actually the way of life. And hence I said, today connectivity is an oxygen, and OTTs thrive on that, the connectivity. A lot to say on this, but let me hold on to my remarks because we have some other eminent panel members as well, and I want to be
Yes.
fair with them.
Yeah, some very important points here, democratization and of data, and we'll come back to that. So, Ruby, over to you. How important is personalization in media world?
So it's crucial. That's the TLDR, okay?
Yes,
If you think about, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the content world was completely different. I mean, the amount of, if I go 15, but that's not go too far, right? I mean, traditionally, users were, consuming data or consuming content in TV content by just checking what is on the TV guide, right? That was back in the age with linear channels. Now, in the last years, even before OTT got hyped, the video on demand started, which changed the consumption patterns of the users. And now, with the rise of OTT, this just got much bigger and much stronger. Now, the thing is that you have, and there's a paradox here. Now, today you have much more options and much more shows or uh, uh, which are available for you to watch at night, for example. But it's also much harder to find the thing that you're interested in. And it's a paradox because when you have an order of magnitude less TV shows, you knew what you wanted to watch. Now, this is because you're overwhelmed with the amount of options. And this is where it's crucial to have a personalization or a prediction platform that will help you target the right content. And this is just from the user side. If you're looking from the enterprise side, they have so much more options to gain more revenue or to give a better service or to
yes,
focus on their uh, own series with the help of personalization. And also, I can talk about this more and more, but I think I will give the stage for
yes,
the
Ruby.
other panel members.
Yes, we'll build on it as we go along. Very important points, right? More options, so difficult to find as well. And we'll probably come back to you. So Himanshu, you're doing completely different thing about translations, and I think that's really kind of the in game, especially India having so many languages, right? And you would have that number. And also, what is your view, and where is your vision coming from in terms of personalization, and how important it is for the Indian market?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me for this. And I'm totally not from OTT industry for sure, but I know data and the number of data which require, what points we require to get users and what all those things. So I would like to start that. First of all, I'll tell what my background is. We help business to localize at scale. We have built our own machine translation engine based on neural machine translation with machine learning, and we help companies to go local for Indian languages. As far as OTT is concerned, OTT is revolutionizing the dynamics of entertainment, media consumption, and viewing experience like never before. As Dr. Prashant said that now in COVID, we after COVID, we do see a spike in digital platforms and people adopting themselves to use them, and then digital platform cater to the diversity of taste and preference of audiences, including the vernacular experience. So, which drawing a bigger and wider audience base for advertisers to target in OTT. So consumer these days are more focused on chasing the content. On a factual note, we have seen that 74% of subscriber, in fact, just sign up for a particular series to a OTT platform. So people are moving according to their content preferences, and digital platforms are immersed with data on user behavior, backed by artificial intelligence that decides on how the audience is going to like, react to the advertising content, and etc. I think if to stand out in market, it is very important to personalize your user experience, I must say.
Yes, thanks, Himanshu, for those comments. Coming to you, Adolf, we heard the word crucial here. We said it's important. There are choices. We are spoiled. So, what is your view? Since you've been working with the media industry for so long, so what is your view on how important it is for building a superior customer experience?
I can just underline that it is crucial, and I think not only from our point of view, and it's really a pleasure to be with you here as all distinguished persons together here on the panel. So thanks for that. And um, looking back, you know that IBC was also cancelled by COVID, and although we all do hear fantastic technology to allow personalization, it's always the question, are the gatekeepers ready for personalization, and what is their view on actually how much personalization will help them? We can show it in our labs, we can prove the uptakes are enormous, but if the industry is not ready, and we have seen this in targeted advertising value chains for many, many years, that targeted advertising was just blocked by the value chains not being ready. But when we look at the panel I watched recently, where there was Netflix, Vincent Auciat, and there was Peter Fairford, who is Vice President Entertainment Products at Liberty Global. And the final question on that panel was, what is the big thing in the next 5 years? And Peter answered on that, we need to get personalization into the user interface exactly because there is the flood of entertainment content. And if you don't bring this choice back down to a human consumable way, uh, you will not be able to make the customer happy despite having the access to all of the content. And I think that goes back to the paradox of choice that Ruby mentioned. So even if a supermarket, and that's a very famous test, if you put a lot of things on the shelf, a lot of people, and that was a test that it was marmalades. If you have like 50 different choices of marmalades, people come and uh, look at them, but they don't buy. If you have like a choice of six, fewer people come, but the overall turnover is higher. So it's really crucial to put the right things in front of the people.
Right. Thanks a lot for those comments. So I have a question to you, Ruby. That does AI really capture micro trends? What I watch in the morning, and it'll be true for very many users, right? What I watch in the morning is different than what I watched in the evening, or it's different when I'm on a smart TV versus when I'm on my own mobile, or I'm sharing time with family. There's so many dynamics when it comes to OTT content, and does AI really capture that kind of micro trends? How does it
Yeah.
work? Is Yeah,
So
it's
you're
about that.
saying AI is something very general, right? You need the right
Yeah.
technology or the right algorithms within AI.
Yes.
And but to your question, yes, this is something that is currently being done, and I think we could. I would separate your question to two things, because you mentioned micro trends and you mentioned
Yes,
like viewing on different devices,
yes,
and
yes.
this is actually two different things, and both are applied by AI algorithms. Now, to be able to capture the different behavior over a device is something that is done, we're doing, I know other companies are also doing, and it's super important, right? Because you have a viewing pattern for your TV at night. You have maybe for your mobile, where you're on the go or you're on the bus, and maybe even on your web browser.
Yeah.
So from an AI perspective, at least this is how we model it, we treat the device as a different signal, right? And this is something that you add to the AI algorithms, and they need to learn. They need to learn what is the right ratio, what is the behavior between these different signals, and for example, another different signal which go along the device is the time of the day, right? Because you might be watching several type of content at night on one device, and then different content, I know, like sports late at night, and comedy at the afternoon. You need to capture the right time and the right device, and you need to do all that in real time, because, and this is where I'm going to the first part is you mentioned the micro trends, because a static AI model can learn the behavior, but it also needs to adapt in real time. And this is something we saw obviously at the COVID phase, when all the normal schedule, it's simply gone away. I mean, my kids were at home during the day, right? And the whole working hour was different, so you need to adapt to all of this. So you can look at trends by the consumption, the current consumption on the user, and that could change over a month or even one day if I don't know, if somebody is sick and stayed at home. You also need to look at trends from the data perspective, from the content perspective. For example, you have a very new show that just aired, and you want to promote that content to other users. And now you need to understand, your AI need to understand, okay, is this some kind of news article that is why it's hype? Which, I mean, it
Hmm.
doesn't make sense to intuitively recommend a few hours later. Or is this some piece of content that we call it evergreen, that you
Hmm.
could utilize to other users with similar taste based on that? So the
Hmm.
AI, again, is something very general. There is a lot of
Yeah.
algorithms, and I think the point to note here is it's not a single AI or a single algorithm. It's an ensemble of a lot of algorithms that predict
Yes.
very well and provide a very good user experience. That is, you asked before, the users today expect a good user interface. This is something
Yes.
that is become mandatory when you subscribe,
True.
where you're paying for a service.
True. Very, 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 very true, Ruby, about that. So, Adolf, I want to ask you this question. Do recommendations really build engagement for a platform? I think all of us from here from OTT want to know, do they really help build engagement?
Mhm. Sure. When we look at that, there are, of course, very different usage paradigms for video, and also from the customer base, you have very different KPIs. So let me pick three different experiences and explain what we have seen and achieved here in the market. If we look at one hand, think about an app or especially a website that is featuring a program guide. And we have done this for Binding, which is a large publishing house in the Netherlands. And the most famous brand, and therefore also the largest market share, is TV Gids. So it's just TV Guide in Dutch. And as they are a trusted brand, they always relied on editorial recommendations. And we have changed that. We have changed their main row to be a personal one. So that takes into account a lot of different algorithms. For people that come in the first time are not recognized, you pick in trending, but people that really regularly use that program guide, all the notions that also Ruby mentioned, where you segment this by time of day, by the device type they are connecting, and so on, and go to the full depth of understanding what they want, and really understanding what is driving their behavior against also the background of the metadata, especially there, as their own publishing house, they have that. And
Wow.
the interesting part was the click-through rate on these things, and that's really what also drives the business model, went up by a factor of 3. So we have added 200% of click-throughs on that customer, and they were so happy that yeah, they made it even public in an event last year. So it therefore I can really share this openly. So that's what you can expect really from personalization on a web page, on an ad, when you are really looking into click-through rates. If I look at a very different experience, think more like a linear TV, but more the kinds of OTT services that you see today that mimic linear
Hmm.
channel, but it's actually a playlist. And those
Hmm.
playlists can be put together by editors, but they can also be driven by intelligent algorithms.
Wow.
So what we have done here with a brand in Germany for of TVs and set-top boxes was to offer personal TV channels to the users and think of them like a playlist that is automatically managed by the algorithms for you. So you have the latest news for you, you have movie picks, and it's really, yeah, appearing like a channel, and you can zap to that. And
Wow.
as this was monetized through advertising, so there the KPI was how long do the people stay with that, and per household the consumption went up if you had the personalization on those channels, 120 minutes per week and household. So that's
Wow.
another measure or another paradigm I can share here. Or perhaps a third and last example here, if you look at a transactional VOD service in the Asia Pacific region, um, they this was really just transactional. You need to buy the movie to have them. So a lot of people come and look, but not so many come and buy. And if you personalize this, if you bring the right things also from the back catalog in front of the people, so we have seen an increase in uptake of 25 to 30%, really month on month. I'm not talking about the first peak when you start to personalize, but really a sustained increase in monthly revenues of 30% that we gained here for the operator. And you can do this uh, in different ways. And you can do this if you just look at the price elasticity of the users. You could just push for those that accept high priced things, the high priced things, but that's stupid. That's not what our algorithms do. You need really the sustained advantage, and here you need to look in to making sure that more people become regular buyers. And this was one of the reasons we have been chosen, because we, as the only supplier, also broadened um, the amount of users that regularly buy by more than 10%. So not just increase the consumption overall, but also broaden who is coming back. And I think that's what you can expect in general if the algorithms are put properly in place.
Right. I think there's some that's some fantastic results. And as a marketer in my past life, I have used it to personalize the conversation with the users by sending using the same recommendations on push and emails and on SMSs, and it's been so much more effective. The engagement really kind of doubles up there. As soon as you start contextualizing the conversation with the customer. So totally with you on that. Prashant, I have a question here for you. Given the India context, we have so much of data and there's so much craziness happening here, right? In terms of sheer scale and size. Does really AI, and especially in case of recommendations, does it really bring in, that efficiency? And if so, do you have an example to share with us?
Vani, it's actually an unfair or an old statement, I would say, that in Indian context, whether it is actually working,
Hmm.
because what has happened in last 15 months, if you actually go sheerly by the NPI numbers, National Payment Gateway of India, the
Yeah.
NPI numbers, they have recorded the world record and a historic transactions online transactions through the NPI payment gateway, which are in tune of about 34 crore transactions, right? That's quite a historic one and gigantic in numbers. We are almost 30% plus transactions online compared to China during the same period, right? And if you actually look at how does this happening, if you actually look at India's one or rather world's biggest telecom startup, Reliance Jio, that started about almost 5 years back. Today they are more
Yes.
than 50 crore customers. Now, how does that customer activation happened? Initially, if you remember, it was actually before. I mean, when you buy the SIM card and by the time you step out of the store, your number is activated and you're online through fingerprint, biometric, and the Aadhaar linkage that was happening. And the entire rule engine was being built using the AI, conversational AI. Right now, if you are looking at 0 to 50 crore customers in 5 years, that's a massive number, and it could happen only by with use of technology, and not only digital technologies but the RPAs, rule engines, the bots and
Yes.
conversational AI, because that's the only way you can actually keep the pace. Now, interestingly, when you have that size and volume of users on OTT apps, they are also training their bots to not only learn the Indian local regional languages, and probably Himanshu would second that. They're also teaching the bots the Indian slang and the
Yeah.
regional ways and means of how you converse, so that actually gives the personalization. So if you look at the reels and the WhatsApp and the Facebook conversations, they're not only contextual but they're hyper personalized. And when you are actually reading that in your own regional language, and India has at least 30 of them, that is what is the hyper personalization that we are talking about. And then
Yes.
when you have OTT platforms like maybe TikTok, though it is a little historic now, I cannot
Yes.
refrain myself from giving that example. uh, you go crazy with millions of users signing up in few months, few weeks, and it actually completely stormed from nowhere. How does this mobile studio concept captures the imagination, and probably we also surface that what kind of a talent a country can exhibit. Now, if you look at the recommendation engine, hyper personalization, the ease of use, and all of that, this is actually giving in, and these are some of the very smart and subtle and an embedded AI ways, which some of the disruptors are thinking, which are helping in adopting it in big time. So AI
Right.
is no longer in large enterprises. It's not only the, so to say, high tech stuff, but it has become kind of a commodity when it comes to the OTT world. It is the way in which you conceptualize and embed in your business process or a business model, that's giving you this hyper scalability factor.
Right. So coming on hyper scalability, right? That's very important because that's when we talk of India, we talk of scale, size, and the kind of data sets we are working with. So coming to you, Himanshu, which is about translation, which is about personalization at the last layer, right? Which is at the content, language level sort of a thing. Then, how accurate is AI is or helpful in doing that, because when we speak of language, there's something which is even Prashant mentioned that there's something slang and we all speak it like differently, and then there is English on top of it, which is kind of a totally different thing, and we have very localized words which we use. So Bombay has its own language versus a Delhi language. When you meet two people who's using which, and they both by the way speaking Hindi. So what's happening? How accurate is AI in your space?
So one of the difficult space we work at is natural language processing. So Indian language have different contexts, different characters. So in English, it's very easy to make engine learns on those sentences because, for example, we have multiple languages like 22 languages, and we have major two. family of languages. We call it Indo-Aryan languages and then Dravidian languages. So both have different subject, verb, object formation of sentences. So getting those two into nitty and gritty of that, it's very very
Yes.
difficult. So it leads millions of sentences to train a, model of from English to multiple Indian languages, and need multiple million billions lines of sentences, and that too depends on that what context you are talking about. So if I say mobile, so mobile can be a phone for me, but if you are talking about transportation industry, it is
Mobility.
you are mobile, right? So both have different contexts and different meanings altogether. Bank can be river bank, right? Bank can be financial bank. I want to
Yes.
bank upon you. So all these things are very very different in nature, and getting those in efficient way, or getting the
Yes.
contextualization of that is the key here. So how we can make that contextualization is like collecting lots of data, scraping them, and understand that what data means to us, and tag those data according to the domains which we are working on, right?
Right.
So as Dr. Prashant said, that conversational AI, of course. So what I am saying, if I am angry, I can say acha, and if I'm happy, and then also I can say acha. So how to bring
Right.
context in this? Machine will only
Right.
understand this acha is written there. So,
Yes.
so there would be a
Sticky note.
supervised learning on those data sets, can be trained by human, or can be
Wow.
rectified those
Okay.
human, and then
Yes.
we create a pipeline and give them and use it. So today at Devnagri, we have been working on this from last 2.5 years, and we have processed multi-million sentences on different domains, and we have reached up to about 85% of accuracy from English to Indian languages, and there from 85 to 95 would be a good billions
Yes.
of sentences would be there, and
Yes.
then we should reach that. But all in all,
Absolutely.
which I say, it's a promising, because we have close to billion people, and it's been created at a scale unparalleled everywhere else in the world, right? So people are using, so in US people used to start with desktop and laptops. In India, we start with mobile phone. So
That's
our
right.
users,
Yes. Absolutely.
we give them a device which is handy and which is in their language, and
Yes.
they can surf whatever they want, right? And
Absolutely.
and the expected growth rate of Indian language internet users is about 18%, and compared to English
Absolutely.
users, that's 3%. So see,
Right.
these numbers already tell a story that leading
Hmm.
content generation platform which have already started using focusing on Hindi and other languages, 95% of YouTube videos consumed in regional languages. Such a huge
Correct.
number. So I think
Absolutely.
if
Yes.
vernacular is would be the best thing for a brand in terms of
Yes.
personalization of the content.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I think that's important. So Ruby, you've also worked with Indian data. What is that one thing, or you would like to or share was a challenge or an insight, or and how well the engine worked actually on Indian data?
On what? I'm sorry, can't hear you well.
Can you hear me?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, you're a little disconnected.
Oh, okay, okay. So my question was that since you've also worked on Indian data and we were talking about the scale size of Indian data, so I said, what is that one challenge or insight which you would like to share on the Indian data? Something which all OTT players should either be careful before doing it, or if they've walked into it, then they should use it.
So again, it's two questions. First of all, I think one thing that is really defined the Indian market. It's the customization that is needed, and that's first of all from the different language that we talked about, and till the fact that you have so much tens of millions of users or hundreds of millions of users, and each one is unique. So I think the first challenge is you need to have a platform that works on. We mentioned that before on hyper personalization, but I will take hyper personalization to a different definition, to definition of one to one, which means okay, you could personalize the experience. You can create segments, for example, like all the users from North Mumbai or south of India, or the one who speak Hindi, or something like that. That's
Yes.
great. But you can go drill down to a single user level
Okay.
for an account level. And you need to
Right.
understand their needs. And to be honest, you can go even deeper than that. This is something we're doing because most of the time you have an account level, right? You
Yes.
don't even know who is the member. If we're talking about OTT, usually it's a family account, even if it's mobile or something like that. You need to understand who is from the family or from the account is currently watching, and
Yeah.
that's without the information that somebody is giving you. Okay, this is profile one, profile two,
That's
because
right.
most of the customers don't have that profile options, and even if they do have, the users do not switch that, right? They just use the one that is currently logged in on the TV. So you need to understand, without anybody telling you, who is currently watching from within that household. So for example, in my family, it could be me, my wife, I have two little daughters. You need to understand automatically and in real time. That the key here
Yes.
it's real time, because it's not something, okay, every noon my daughter will watch and every night I'm watching. Life is
Yeah.
dynamic. Everybody's all the time, stuff change. You need to adapt. And I think this is stuff that we saw from the Indian market. That's, you asked before how much gain you see from using personalization. So once you go very deep with hyper
Yes.
personalization, we saw over 250% increase on the Indian market just by using hyper personalization. This is both on the number of video watch and, more importantly, the total time viewed in the system.
Right, absolutely. Thanks for that. I think we're coming to the closure. So last, couple of minutes here. So quickly, we'll go across the table for some closing remarks, starting with you, Adolf. What is that one advice? And this question's for all of you, and you can answer one by one. That really, what is that one advice you want to give to listeners today? That sort of how they can improve their user experience in this coming year and better the experience for OTT users in the country. So, Adolf, we'll start with you.
So when you look at really a consumer, and even if you hyper personalize for him, on the one hand, we as humans are very complex beings. On the other hand, although there comes OTT and a lot of new technology, um, the basics of what we desire and what we need stay really the same. So, on the one hand, I would say it's important for everybody to know, if I'm connecting to a provider like a big brand, I have a relationship with them. I want to know what does the big brand promote or want me to see. Then, on the other hand, I really want to see what others are doing, and this could be on a country level, this could be really down to my complete region. And the third one is what is really in this system out of the whole amount of content that is available, what is really available for me. And I think if you keep to these three things and keep the size, the amount that you show initially on the screen to a digestible level, and I think that's a very crucial end, and explain in the language of the user why you bring him this personal recommendation, then then you have done already more than 80% of the job to make sure you will be hyper successful.
Right. Great. Dr. Prashant, what are your closing remarks?
Yeah, so we are actually witnessing the historic and transformational changing times. And let me just give you a very simple analogy about how this world has changed from what we call as the producers or manufacturers world to the uh, service goods and service providers world, and how we have transformed our linear supply chains to what we call as the extreme consumerism. And with the OTT analogy, let me say that one side you had producers or manufacturers, other side you had the customers or consumers, and they were connected at the marketplace through a supply chain. Now this has changed: on one side as a content, other side as an eyeballs. So your consumers are your eyeballs, and the goods and service providers are the content, and they are connected through internet pipe. That's OTT for you. And what is happening is these eyeballs are always constantly looking at the options. And that's where every time, I mean, we say that data is in every connection, transactions, observation, right? And when you're saying observation, these are intelligent observations, and how you're being able to capture that using your machine learning, deep learning algorithms, and being able to put the context in the conversation, so that whether it is upselling, cross selling, customer retention. And if you look at that, the content and eyeballs are not wanting to do one time transactions, but they want to create a user experience on a real time basis, on a permanent basis, right?
Right,
And that is what actually gives the repeatability of the business. And companies that are not only having the excellent products, but people who have been able to do this successfully using digital technologies are the ones who are being
yes,
able to ride on these hyper scalability success in the OTT world.
right. So, yes, Himanshu, do you have any closing words? Ritika is already giving me indicators here.
Yeah. If I say closing would be building a localized platform to generate higher traction and reach out to a larger data set for audience should be the first thing in the on the list for OTT players and other active listeners out here. And creating more content in Indian languages available on search results would be really necessary to so that they can find out their content in their language and they can browse it well and search it well, and the speed, the scalability to reach that content to that particular person in native language would be the key takeaway here.
Right, great, thanks. Ruby, what about you? This last 2 cents, the closing
I think
remarks.
everybody said, but if I need to in one sentence, I think you have to add customization and personalization. So if you have a product, your product is relatively static, right, to all the users, the first gap into personalization is a huge. You'll see huge increase on all of your KPIs. That's the first the first place you should do. If you already have some kind of personalization, you should, you know, go to the next phase, which is real time and going to the household level if you're able. Then you'll see the second increase on the KPI. It's actually harder to get these KPIs, but with today's technology, uh, this is something that we're seeing over all the time. I mean, we have companies that, okay, we already have a recommendation engine. Why do you think you will do better? And to be honest, they just test it and they see, because it's the next level.
Right. So I think very, very, very exciting conversation here. A lot of learnings. Learning my top three takeaways here are personalization, personalization, personalization. Important, crucial. We use so many words for it. Please don't ignore it. It has to be done. It's a must-have. Recommendations engine bring huge engagement. We heard from Adolf and from Ruby both. It's pretty massive how it has changed and built impact for many organizations. It is definitely here for India as well, which Prashant spoke about. So many different other use cases which can be used to do it. And yes, language is a must-have. By changing, just adding language contextualization to search could change your results. So a lot of insightful conversation here. And over to you, Ritika. And apologies for stretching this by another 5 minutes.
No worries, Vani. So thank you to all the panelists for such an insightful session. I mean, we had really a lot of fun. In fact, my all the colleagues were also listening to this session. So it was amazing. I would also like to extend my thank you to all the delegates who attended this session. And with this, we come to the end to the fifth edition of Pixels. Hope everybody had a lot of fun. So thank yous and stay safe. Thank you.